The Geneva Environment Network has the pleasure to welcome you today to an information sharing session on activities and events related to the environment taking place during the 55th session of the Human Rights Council, which will kick off at the end of this month in Geneva and will conclude in early April. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Dana Rizzolio, the coordinator of the Geneva Environment Network. I'm here with all the team. We are a network of more than 100 institutions and secretariats based in Geneva, contributing to making this region one of the global hubs for environmental governance. We are administrated by the United Nations Environment Programme and supported by Switzerland, and we do organize various networking activities, including regular multi-stakeholder roundtables and briefings on major environmental negotiations and trends. And we also organize networking and information sessions such as this one, trying to bring together friends to get better organized. As I keep mentioning in these sessions, the environmental agenda in human rights bodies, particularly in Geneva, has increased in importance over the past few years. Not only do we have a United Nations Special Rapporteur on human rights to the environment that reports to the March session of the Human Rights Council, we have also seen this is in the growing number of reports by special rapporteurs and treaty bodies that tackle issues related to human rights and the environment. Furthermore, this can also be seen in engagement in interactive dialogues with states, international organizations, human rights national institutions, and non-governmental organizations during the sessions. The link between environment and human rights cannot be ignored. And on the top of this, of course, a very important milestone, the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly adopted resolutions recognizing the right to a healthy environment 2 years ago. As such, for some years now, the Geneva Environment Network has published for each session of the Human Rights Council a webpage that summarizes the environmental agenda of the related session. You have this on the screen. The information collected on this page is compiled by our team, and I will ask later my colleague, Hervé Parafina, to summarize some of the elements that you can already find there. The objective of today's information sharing session is to discuss and share information on planned environmental activities at and around the human rights, this upcoming session of the Human Rights Council, such as events, publications, or exhibitions, among others, and exchange on possible synergies. They will feed the page that I have presented and will provide an updated calendar of these environmental-related events, and inputs are really welcome from all stakeholders. And there's a link also that we have a submission form on the website, and the link is being shared on the chat for those who are joining us online. As you know, the Kingdom of Morocco has this year the presidency of the Human Rights Council. The Kingdom of Morocco has also the presidency of the United Nations Environment Assembly that kicks off on the same day of the Human Rights Council. And as the permanent representative of the Kingdom of Morocco, His Excellency Ambassador Znaiber, and the President of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, Her Excellency Leila Ben Ali, both keep highlighting, Morocco was part of the core group of countries that proposed a resolution on the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, which was later adopted. They keep reminding us of how fulfilling this human right and making stronger connections between the agendas is important during their presidencies. I'm now coming to another news that is more technical, but very important for this session of the Council. You might have heard that there is a major technical issue that is disturbing many stakeholders. Indeed, we hear from member states, from UN agencies and civil society organizations, and particularly from this last group, that they are unhappy that the United Nations office in Geneva is not providing modalities for live online participation, as it maintained that it has no mandate for providing hybrid services from the United Nations General Assembly. Stakeholders are extremely concerned by the negative impact that these measures are having on the functioning on the human rights treaty bodies that are currently in session or that will soon begin their sessions, as the online participation of numerous civil societies representatives that were scheduled to interact with treaty bodies have been cancelled. So this needed to be mentioned. There has been one of the letters is also available online, and maybe my colleague can share the link to those. It's the article that you see here on the screen for those who are online. So before we start out to the tab on the agenda of the upcoming session, I would like to mention, particularly for those who are online, that throughout the event, they can raise their question in the Q&A box or make comments. We will use them to feed the discussions we'll have through the tab. I'm also happy to give the floor to those who are online that we know. However, for security reasons, the people we don't know, we will mainly take written comments. Finally, let me also mention that for those who are online, that there is a transcription is available at the bottom left of your screen in over 100 languages. You can activate it as mentioned in the slide that you can see now on the screen. So we will start this session by hearing from leading experts on recent updates on the global human rights and environmental agenda, and then go more in depth on the details of the upcoming session of the Human Rights Council. So today, once more, we have the pleasure to welcome Ben Schachter, Human Rights Officer and the leader of the environmental team in the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We will now hear from Ben recent developments on the human rights and environmental global agenda, the important work that his great team is leading, and why it is important to have such information sessions ahead of this each session of the Human Rights Council. Ben, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you. A pleasure as always to be here, and our gratitude to the Geneva Environment Network for bringing these briefings together. They're always incredibly helpful in terms of mapping out the agenda for the council, and we really appreciate the tremendous amount of work that goes into that from our friends at the Geneva Environment Network. So Diana already mentioned UNEA 6 starts at the same time as the session of the council, both chaired by Morocco. And we will, in fact, be in both places. So it's a challenging, when UNEA is coming around at the same time as the council, it's always a challenging and busy time for the office. You're going to hear from my colleague Victoria later related to the work of the Special Rapporteur on Environment in particular. There are a number of special procedures mechanisms presenting reports related to the environment at the upcoming session of the Council. And this, of course, will be the last report presented by the current Special Rapporteur on Environment. So we'll be excited to hear the updates from Victoria about what's being planned around that, and very sad to see David go. There will be two mandate holders appointed during this session of the Council, a new Special Rapporteur on Climate Change and a new Special Rapporteur on Environment. So obviously those are very important decisions for the Council, and things that we'll all be paying close attention to in terms of seeing who will be carrying those important mandates forward in the coming months and years. From the office side, the major thing taking place is an interactive dialogue with the High Commissioner related to his report on climate change and its impacts on the right to food. This report builds on a previous report by the Secretary General, which was submitted to the Council last year, and a panel discussion at HRC 53 on climate change and the right to food. And it focuses in particular on the nexus between economic policies, climate change, and the right to food, exploring the ways that things like decent work, social protection, rights to land, resources, and territories, trade and investment policies, intersect with climate change, the way that food systems contribute to climate change and are vulnerable to climate change, and how we can advance towards transformative change within food systems in order to achieve objectives related to protecting the right to food for all people, as well as mitigating climate change and essentially breaking this current vicious cycle, I'd say, between agricultural production processes and climate change. That we're in a world where there is actually enough food, but it's not well distributed, where the means of and choices of production and consumption are really affecting our climate. So we look at that and try to address all those things in this most recent report from the High Commissioner, building on the previous work. So there will be an interactive dialogue with the High Commissioner on the 14th of March, late. It's like 5 p.m. I think, and then 15th morning, tentatively. I mean, sometimes these things shift, but that's the dates we have right now related to this report, and of course would be very happy and hope that there's active contributions from states and other stakeholders. The other thing we'll have is a OHCHR UNEP briefing. And we've been doing this habitually when our counterparts from Nairobi, in particular from the Division of Environmental Law, that are working on right to a healthy environment with us, come to Geneva for the council sessions. And this will be an opportunity to hear both updates from UNEA, which concludes on the 1st of March, and more broadly related to the work that OHCHR and UNEP are doing together. I think the final thing Diana asked me to do was try to relate the session of the council to the broader picture of work and environmental areas on human rights and environment. And I just flag, I mean, this year, like every year in recent memory, will be a tremendously important one for the environment, and frankly, every year from now until forever. We're in a situation of extreme environmental crisis, and the High Commissioner in the Human Rights at 75 high-level event we organized last year made environment one of 4 areas that we really focused on, that we see as critical to the office's work going forward. And it will be a big part of OHCHR's new management plan and planning processes. We recognize that, without the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, we can't achieve any of our broader or other human rights objectives either. And so this will be an increasing priority for our work. It will be featured prominently as a strategic direction going across all areas of the office's work. And we will continue to deepen our engagement in a number of processes, including the plastics negotiations, the biodiversity negotiations, the COP negotiations of a science policy platform on pollution. Obviously, participation in UNEA, already mentioned. And the reason I'm raising all these processes is because they send signals to each other, or at least they should. And we try to facilitate that those signals reach, and that there is a communication and a coherent process and approach across the UN system and these international negotiations. So, at UNEA, there will be discussions of solar radiation management, for example, and the Human Rights Council Advisory Committee just submitted a report on new technologies for climate protection. And it's really critical that we actually see that reflected in the findings of the Human Rights Council Advisory Committee, reflected in a UNEA decision. That, like I said, these processes are communicating, and so that's a big part of what we'll be trying to do, engaging in these different spaces. Not this session of the council, but the next, there will be a new climate change resolution, but this session of the council, there's going to be a new rapporteur on climate change. And the rapporteur on climate change has a clear mandate to go and engage in the climate negotiations, which the office does as well. So really grateful to all of you for joining. I've probably talked too long, so I'll stop there. And thanks again, Diana.
Thank you very much, Ben, for mentioning some of the key moments coming up at the council and also some of the important processes that your team is leading or supporting. You mentioned you went more in detail on what the special rapporteur on the right to food is presenting at this session. Indeed, his team couldn't be with us today, but now I'm turning to a very important person that we have here in the room, who is supporting the mandate of the special rapporteur on the human rights and the environment, with Frédéric, who is also here in the room with us. Victoria Aberg is a human rights officer in the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And you will be introducing us to what David Boyd will be doing at this session. So we look forward to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thanks. I'd like to join in Ben's thanks to you for organizing these information sessions, because I think they're really useful for us, but I think also for everyone else. And I'm really pleased that, me representing special procedures, but special procedures in general also being presented here at the table. In the past year, as some of you might know, David Boyd, the special rapporteur on the right to on environment and human rights, has focused a lot of his work on the role of businesses. He held an expert seminar in November here in Geneva, and the report that he will present at this session is on this topic. The title is Business, Planetary Boundaries, and the Right to Clean, Healthy, and Sustainable Environment. The interactive dialogue is planned for the 6th of March. It was just slightly moved in case you had seen a previous date. It's been pushed forward due to some scheduling changes at the council in general. So he'll speak in the afternoon of the 6th if all goes well. Apart from this main mandated report, he'll also report on the expert seminar that he held in a separate, he'll present a separate report on this. He also conducted country visits in 2023. He went to Chile in May and to Botswana in October, and these reports will also be discussed during the session. I'd like to read just the summary of his report, the very brief one, and his conclusions. So it says, scientific evidence that humanity is exceeding planetary boundaries calls for an urgent rethinking of the business and economic paradigms that have pushed civilization to the brink of disaster. The special rapporteur evaluates the inequalities of voluntary normative frameworks for ensuring that businesses respect human rights and clarifies state obligations to protect the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment from harms caused by businesses. Systematic and transformative changes are needed to achieve a just and sustainable future, including new business models, climate and environmental laws that incorporate planetary limits, fiscal policies that internalize externalities and reduce inequality, and holistic societal goals that replace GDP and limitless growth. Extensive recommendations are provided for states. So it's a bit in line with Ben's messaging. I mean, we're all aligned that the crisis is coming to an extreme point, and for us and for the mandate, also businesses play a key role in this. Also, what's important, like Ben mentioned, this is the last session of the current special rapporteur. His mandate is finishing on the 30th of April this year. As you also might know, well, Ben mentioned it, the selection process is ongoing. It's been a bit slow. We're hoping to have recommendations for this one, hopefully, to hear about it like in a week or two. That's what we're expecting. As you might have seen, there's a lot of interest both in this procedure with over 30 candidates applying, and also for the one on climate change, when we counted, I think, more than 60 persons, and yeah, a lot of people of very high quality. So there's a lot of interest, which I think is a great sign for these mandates to keep operating, and it also shows the importance of the or the interest in the issues, themselves. As part of the Human Rights Council session, he will also, or we're organizing together with him, a side event on the 5th of March. This will be in the Palais at 4 o'clock, in person as of now, due to the issues that Diana mentioned. But if there's any update, we'll let you know. Jan is also kindly collaborating on this, UNEP, others, member states, but you'll know more. And the topic, if I didn't mention it, is on business and the right to healthy environment. So please come and listen to us then. Also, he will attend a series of other events. I'll just mention one that might not be mentioned by others, which is a side event organized by the Geneva Academy and Switzerland on the right to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. The title is Definition and Links with Other Human Rights. They're also launching a brief, which could be of interest to many of us, and this is most likely on the 4th at the moment. Yeah. So David is the speaker there. I think 5th. Sorry, yes, like someone would know. And sorry if you were going to mention it. I'm not going to mention the events of others. I just thought because they were not here at the table. And yes, so this is for now. I know UNEP has a lot of activities. I know a lot of other people here have other events they'd like to signal. So I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Victoria. And that reminds me an information that I also didn't share, but it seems that also the deadline for NGOs to submit their request for side events was very early this year. So many of them actually missed the date. So that we might heard from some of them, some comments on that and how they are trying to find some alternatives to still hold some of the events that they were planned. So next, before we start our tour de table, we have Juliana Almeida, who is an environmental law specialist at the United Nations Environment Program, who is joining us online. She's based in Nairobi, but she will be in Geneva in March. Juliana, with no further ado, let me move you to the panel, and you have the floor.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me and see me all right. It's a pleasure to be here again, and thank you so much, Geneva Environment Network and Diana and Darby, of course, for inviting us. I'm indeed connecting from Nairobi, where it's sunny. I'm sorry about that in Geneva, and right in the middle of the preparations for UNEA, so everything is very, very intense here. But of course, we are also looking forward to going to Geneva and collaborating and engaging with you in all of these events and processes. So I'm here to talk to you mostly about two events that we are organizing. The first one that I would like to mention is the event that we are organizing with also the Geneva Environment Network on a global launch of the Environment Rule of Law report. So as some of you might know, UNEP does an environmental rule of law report biannually, more or less. And at the end of last year, we just came out with our second edition, and it's called Environmental Rule of Law, Tracking Progress and Charting Future Directions. And this is mainly it's a report that goes into what is environmental rule of law, what are the most recent developments, what are the trends, for example, the impact of COVID, or the fact that the right to a healthy environment was recognized by the General Assembly. So I'll be happy to put a link in the chat, and I'm sure that Diana and Arvi will then share it also in the website. But we are then preparing this global launch, which will happen on the 12th of March from 10 to 11:30 at the International Environment House. It will be great if all of you can join. And we are still working on the agenda, but looking at inviting several international leading experts on the subject, and for example, a judge will be joining us. We are looking also into having a representative, some member states. So more news to come. We'll be happy to then share the information, but save the date on your calendars for the 12th of March. So this is the first event. The second one is UNEP is organizing a side event on clarifying applicable norms and human rights standards to conservation. This is because we've been working towards this raising awareness of the human rights impacts that many conservation activities have on local communities, on indigenous peoples, and others. And so we want to do this side event a bit to indeed raise awareness, to bring together several experts into the room, and civil society, of course, but also and importantly, conservation organizations and conservation funding organizations. So once again, we also are working on the agenda, but for example, I think Victoria didn't mention it because I was going to, but we'll have David joining, the special rapporteur joining the meeting, which is happening on the 8th of March from 1 to 2 in the Palais in the room 25. And I think that's the two big events that we are organizing, and we'll be happy to have you with us. And then, of course, UNEP, meaning me and Su Young, will be around and happy to meet with everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juliana, for this update. And for those who don't know Su Young, she used also to work for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and she's now leading the work on human rights for the United Nations Environment Program. She's Nairobi-based, but she comes often to Geneva. Just moving forward, it's now time to start at the time. I just wanted to mention that I have what has been mentioned. Most of it is already available on the page that Arve will go through in a few minutes. I have promoted some of the friends that are online to the panel, those that I know. If you want to, we have already received various comments online, but I will start by the room, including on some of the events that have been mentioned. The event that you have mentioned that is organized by the Geneva Academy is also organized by Slovenia. I know that the colleague from Slovenia is online, so happy, Damir, we moved you to the floor. So if you want to take the floor, just unmute yourself or raise your hand and we will give you the floor. But I will start by the room, by a tour de table in the room on upcoming activities, or if you have any questions on what has already been presented. So I'm looking here in the room. And Eve, I give you the floor. Eve from Earth Justice. And also when you take the floor, don't hesitate to introduce yourself. I mean, Eve, many of us know you, but we still have new faces around.
Oh, that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I'm not stepping on Damir, our colleague from Slovenia, in his presentation of the event he is organizing. Actually, Slovenia has two events coming up. There's one on, as it was said, on the right to a healthy and sustainable environment. Slovenia being part of the core group on human rights and the environment. And they also are announcing something for the 22nd on water for peace. So two events which are announced by Slovenia, but Damir can say more about that. Apologies, Damir, if I'm taking the floor just before you. Just before continuing, first I'd like to thank Jen for organizing this event. It's really useful. I think the attendance show how needed it is to share information before we get into the session of the Human Rights Council, which was always a bit of a crazy month. But unfortunately, I do have to make a comment we usually don't do in such a discussion because it's supposed just to be technical. But I really want to thank Jen for doing a hybrid event. Unfortunately, this is not a technical issue. And the problem we're having right now with the Human Rights Council has, of course, for us, practical difficulties because some of the events we always had hybrid. Of course, it has been reinforced with COVID, but it became a normal practice since then. And that's one of the small advantage, if we can put it like that, because there's no advantage by having such a pandemic. But the advantage, at least in our practice, was that it gave the possibility and enlarged the possibility to have more voices, expertise, sometimes coming directly from the field and sometimes also from scientific backgrounds who are able to contribute. Let's not forget also that the Human Rights Council is here to hear the voices of the victims. Not having a hybrid meeting means victims will not access to the Human Rights Council. This is going backwards for decades. This is a political problem. It is not a technical problem. And for all of us who are also organizing hybrid events in other setups, we know what it costs. We know how you can do it. We know that it's not so highly expensive. We have also ourselves a very, very limited budget, but even in a very, very, very limited budget, we are able to do hybrid events. So I do think that the UN can, so we cannot accept the argument that this is a technical issue. It is a political issue. This is extremely worrying, and we will never shut up on this because it means right now the UN is preventing victims from the field to be able to speak. Let's not forget that, for example, you will have the adoption of the reports of the UPRs. We will always have contributions from national human rights institutions and from global coalitions who are commenting what is the outcome of the UPR process. This is a 2-minute statement or even 1.5 coming directly from people from the field. They will not make a trip to Geneva just for a 1.5-minute session. You can do it in other circumstances because you do this and then you meet delegations and it's worth staying in Geneva even if you're coming for a very small statement. Not when you're at the end of the process and you're just concluding. We will not be able, if we don't have this hybrid possibilities, to hear directly from the countries who have been reviewed what are the feeling and what is the evaluation of the people who were involved in the process. So again, I'm really insisting on this. This is not a technical issue, it is a political one. And also, so being a political issue, it's quite contradictory right now to ask more people to use the planes to come to Geneva in order to participate in presence when we are struggling against the crisis, the climate crisis that was very well mentioned by Ben. So I really need to underline this because it's a problem we're facing right now in the organization of the event, but it's not just an organizational issue. We know now that people who need to speak will not be able to have their voice heard at the Human Rights Council because of that. So I'll close on this and to say also that for the events that we are still trying and hoping to be able to have, in order to use this great opportunity. So in the Human Rights Council, with the 3 sessions of the Human Rights Council, each time as a practice, it's not a decision, but it's a practice. There's a specific environmental issue. In June, it's more focused on climate change, and in September, it's on toxics and pollution. And of course, the March session is a general one where we can talk about biodiversity and all of the other environmental issues, and of course, have now a focus on the right to a healthy and sustainable environment. So in this perspective, we are trying now to develop something that we have already developed for the September sessions on toxics, which are called now the Geneva Toxic Free Talks, that have been held for 3 years. And I think we can say with some success, at least a very good level of participation. And we are now also developing a similar process here with the Geneva Rights and Environment Talks. It's the first time we're having these type of talks, so we'll see how it goes. And again, we're facing this hybrid issue. We have several events starting on the 4th, which is on human rights and the impact of investor-state dispute settlements mechanisms. This is a report that has been already presented by the special rapporteur. But it's a very important event as it was presented in the framework of the UNGA in New York. We didn't have enough time to talk about this issue here in Geneva. And we have UNCTAD, who is based in Geneva, and another of other actors with who it's interesting to speak about this issue. So we are planning this. It's on Monday. I can't give you right now the exact timing because we still have to fix it, but that's how it is planned. It has been said, we have there is an important dimension which has not been discussed too much yet at the Council, although the Special Rapporteur has done a report on that. It's the question of ecosystems and biodiversity. And so we're looking to have an event on nature-based solutions and human rights-based approach. Nature-based solution is a very big discussion on the substance, but also more and more now within CBD and other process on funding issues. It's becoming also some kind of a funding criteria. So it's just not a theoretical discussion. It has a lot of practical impact. And it's very, very important, especially if we get to funding, that there is a human rights-based approach. Otherwise, the nature-based solution can just feed into more human rights violations, and we have to avoid that. We're also preparing an event on the right to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment on Wednesday 6. And that we will have from one of our colleague organization, Zoe, who's working in the building next door, a mapping of sacrificed zone. It's a report that had been presented by the Special Rapporteur, David Boyd, in collaboration with the other Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, Professor Marcos Orellana. And there has not been any geographical presentation of that yet. There is a very interesting legal analysis, but we thought that it would be useful also to have a geographical view of the extent of these sacrificed zone. And we look forward to talk about this, this question in that side event. And then 2 other events to be announced for the following week, the 3rd week of the Human Rights Council. There will be on that week the presentation of the report of the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders. And in that context, on Monday the 11th at 1 p.m., we will have an event on protecting environmental defenders, updates and challenges, with several special rapporteurs, including the Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defenders of the Aarhus Convention. And this is co-organized with the International Service on Human Rights. And then we are looking still also in the framework of the question of ecosystems and biodiversity to have an event with IUCN on the challenges that the World Heritage Sites are facing today. Over the last decisions of the World Heritage Committee, there has been a number of decisions that had a strong negative human rights impact in the protection of natural sites, very strong ones, which actually had been clearly expertised and considered as problematic in terms of human rights by IUCN in their own reports, by special procedures, and this has been totally ignored by the decision-making process of UNESCO. So we have a problem here. Definitely we have a human rights and conservation problem, and we look forward to discussing that. So that's the different events we can add to the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yves. And it's to be mentioned also that the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment and other member states and other stakeholders will, of course, be joining the panel of these events. We have Slovenia online that has requested the floor, so I will now give the floor to Slovenia. So, Damir, don't hesitate to unmute yourself and to open the camera because I cannot unmute you. There you are. Please.
Thanks. I will keep the camera off because my setting is not the best one. So hope you bear with me on this one. I would just like to thank you for coming in on some of the issues, and just to add that we as Slovenia, we always at the sessions of the HRC engage on many environmental topics. Of course, those of you who know us, we are mostly engaged on the right to health environment. Regarding side events, Yves mentioned that because I sent him already the information, Slovenia will on the March 22nd, that's on the International Day of Water, organize an event entitled Water as a Catalyst for Cooperative Climate Action and Peace. So we would be grateful if Gen Network could include the event on their website. On the other side event that was mentioned, there needs to be a little bit of clarification because I don't want to take the undue credit. There will be an event on right to health environment on the 5th of March. But just to clarify that due to previously mentioned closing of possibilities for CSOs to register an event early this year, we offered a helping hand. So Slovenia is not the main organizer of this event, not to take the unjust credit on it. And just the last thing to mention, it was mentioned about the hybrid modalities. Of course, we completely support the issue, and we believe that hybrid modalities should be kept at the sessions of the HRC. So that's all from my side.
Thank you very much. I have other colleagues who have requested the floor, but I just went to, a colleague is asking the time for the nature-based solutions side event. So this will be added on the webpage of the event. We have the Geneva Academy colleague asking for the floor. After Damir, so she's joining us online. I'm giving the floor to the Geneva Academy. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello to everyone, and thank you to the Geneva Environment Network for organizing this information sharing session. It's very useful. It was just to precise, and I'm happy to share that the Geneva Academy will organize this side event that has been mentioned earlier. It is organized in collaboration with Switzerland and with Slovenia. Slovenia helped us to organize it. So it's going to be on the definition and links with other human rights, and it will be held on 5th March in the afternoon. So you are welcome to come, and we will be happy to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that we have various colleagues from universal rights groups who have joined us online, and they are also preparing a few things. So if you want to take the floor, just raise your hand, unmute yourself. I'm going back to the room here. We have received a couple of comments, but that will be, we can go through those afterwards. Anybody here? No. URG. Colleagues, I don't know if Joseph or Lola, you want to take the floor. I didn't see Louis online, but yes, there you are. Please.
I'll join in. For everybody who doesn't know me, my name's Joseph Burke. I'm the head of the Nairobi office for URG. My Geneva colleagues were unable to join, but we will be planning around HRC, not a side event, but a meeting, most likely on the 11th of March in the morning before the session starts, to discuss a new initiative we're working on with various colleagues to work to elevate the issue of environmental defenders in the environment and climate space. This will follow up on events that we've carried out at the New York Climate Week, COP28, and an event we're planning here at UNEA. On top of that, we're looking to present 2 new reports that we worked on with UNEP, a Handbook on Environmental Rights and EHRD Best Practices. So we'll be looking to try to present those and organize with different partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I'm looking back at the room. We have various comments online, also people we don't know who have requested the floor, but as I mentioned, we keep we only allow people we know to unmute themselves for security reasons. So Francesca from CL, do you want to add something to what was said? I know that you also missed the deadline for the side events. Please go
Thank you,
ahead.
Diana. No, nothing to add on my side. Exactly. Unfortunately, these changing rules have an impact on the way we we can organize our own events. I would just really want to echo what Eve and others said about the issues with the recent decisions about not having hybrid meetings, and really encourage organizations to sign on the letter that was circulated by ISHR. And also would encourage states to echo our concerns, because of course we know that if these issues are elevated through permanent missions, there are more chances for effective action to be taken. So just wanted to reiterate and stress this point. And thank you very much for these meetings and all the work that Jen does on the background, really having these moments of sharing, and the webpage that you organize before every session is incredibly helpful to gather all the pieces together.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I wanted to, so Eve mentioned the Geneva Environment and Human Rights talks. We have booked a special room at the Palais, not in the main building, and close, where we will concentrate some of these events, and it's mainly on the 11th. Of course, there have other days that have been mentioned, but there might be still some slots on that day for the stakeholders who still are planning to organize something and haven't contacted us. We will be supporting, of course, a lot of the events that have been mentioned now. Maybe, Hervé, I can turn to you, and you can go through what is in the page and maybe focus more on what hasn't yet been mentioned, or what has been mentioned that can be useful for the audience.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Diana, for giving me the floor. Just wanted to highlight that on the page we have, we essentially try to compile all the environment-related activities, reports, anything that will be essentially tried to relate to the environment. Not only that, we also try to follow the other subjects that have been tackled before in previous sessions. As you can see here, on the left side, you will have the headings for each of the topics. We have the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, which will fall under the Special Rapporteur's mandate. The environmental human rights defenders, which for this year will be on children. But in that report, they will actually talk about climate defenders and youth. You also have the right to food and environment, which will focus on fisheries and climate change. Cultural rights and environment, something that the Geneva Environment Network and that the Geneva Toxic Free Talks, as well as on the right to science, which I think the special rapporteur in the field of cultural rights will be tackling in this session. In the appointment section, Ben has already mentioned the special rapporteurs for human rights and environment and climate change will be appointed in this session, but as well as the members of the certain members of the, if I'm not mistaken, that will be the new working group on presence, as well as there will be some members as well on the rights of indigenous peoples expert mechanism. So these will be the other appointments that will be at this session. As Diana has mentioned several times, you have here the events that will be posted on our website. Just send it to us through the form that is also on this page, on the page of today's event. And as well as you will find as well here the resolutions, reports that have any relation to the environment. We'll try to hear. If there are live streams that will be done by our partner organizations or the events that will have live streams, we will also put the videos here so that you can rewatch them afterwards. So yes, thank you. And if you have other questions, you can also send us an email. Thank you.
You will also find there some highlights because we do a lot of covering through our social networks during these events. So when there are important statements that were raised, and we try to be there and to summarize them on that page also, so that can be useful for you reporting activities. So we do all this to support especially the colleagues from the parallel missions who need to report back to Capital, and some of you are covering many topics. I cannot be in all places at the same time, so we are happy to do that. To take the floor, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Diana, and good morning, everybody. My name is Nazareno. I am with the Argentine Mission, a member of the Human Rights team. I just arrived in Geneva, so I am new. This is my first meeting, and I really want to thank you for convening this meeting, congratulate you, because it's really very enlightening. Many things are going on around the Human Rights Council, and I think it's very useful to have this kind of briefing and to put all the pieces together. And in particular, let me really appreciate the tool that you have just shown to us, because we have all the information together, and it's very useful for us as permanent mission and also for our capitals, because we are sending to our capital a lot of information, you know, about what's going on, and this really is useful for us to structure our, you know, our work. So we really appreciate many important topics have been raised this morning. So it's difficult to comment on all those, but we really appreciate to have this time, and in particular in person, to share ideas and to organize our work and our ideas. So we congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we also want to congratulate you all, because, of course, this is highlighting the work that you are doing. I wanted to add something here. Yes, we have been talking a lot today about this in-person hybrid things. I think in Geneva, of course, most of us, we encourage in-person participation when it's possible, because it's always good to exchange and to have real people in front of us. And most of the events that have been mentioned here will include networking opportunities. So don't hesitate to join in person if you are Geneva based and if you are not running from one part to the other. And also this thing on the hybrid has an impact on something important, which is streaming, because a lot of you cannot attend the events, but then you can have a look at the recording of the event. And so some of these decisions that have been taken will not always allow some of the events to be recorded in a proper manner. This not allowing you to go back to the session if needed. So this is why I don't know what happened here, but there was a sound on the screen. So I hope that people who are online could still follow. Oops. Yeah, my computer is getting mad. So yeah, I wanted to raise that it's also of course, then it's where we put the limits. Should you always go back to a session that you were not able to attend? I don't know. But I think that the fact that all this is documented can be useful also for the people who are studying in universities and doing research, PhDs on these kind of topics, and for those who want to come back on important statements that were made at these events. So with that, I don't see any requests for the floor anymore. There were a few comments that we will reply directly to. I keep encouraging you to visit that page where you will find most of the information, and to join all the events that will be mentioned on the page when possible. Thank you very much. Anything you would like to add, Ben? Juliana, anything? Colleagues online?
Just say. Maybe just a very quick word on the decision related to streaming. I mean, that is a UNOG decision. It's something OHCHR has heard a lot of concerns, including these concerns expressed about, and certainly that's something I'll be communicating. And already have communicated to colleagues about, but fully here it reduces the accessibility. There's also sustainability and environmental management implications. So thank you for sharing those concerns. I really encourage you to raise them as much as you can. And you know, at least from my perspective, I'm very much on board with those.
Thank you, Ben. So I think we can now close the event, and don't hesitate to contact us if you have further questions. Thank you very much. And for those who are in person with us, enjoy the coffee and what is here available for you. Thank you. Thank you to all.